Marked 17 years since Massachusetts teen Molly Bish disappeared. Her body was discovered 3 years later, but the person responsible for her death has never been found.
25 years ago, teenage lifeguard Molly Bish disappeared from the town of Warren. The Bish case is one of the biggest investigations in the state's history.
It was a warm summer morning in June 2000. 16-year-old Molly Bish kissed her mother goodbye before heading to her job as a lifeguard at a quiet pond in Warren, Massachusetts. She wore her blue swimsuit and carried her red lifeguard gear. Her mom, Magi Bish, drove her to the spot like she always did. She waited in the car for a few minutes, watching Molly walk toward the lifeguard chair. Everything looked normal. But that was the last time she ever saw her daughter alive. Molly never started her shift. And just like that, she was gone. Molly was full of life. She was the youngest of 3 kids. Her family lived in a small, close-knit town. Everyone knew each other. Molly loved swimming, playing sports, and spending time with her friends. She had a big heart and wanted to help people. That's why she took the job as a lifeguard at Commons Pond. It was a safe place, a family spot. Nothing ever happened there until that day. Before we continue, if this is your first time here, welcome. We'd love to know where you're watching from. Feel free to share in the comments. And to our amazing community, especially those of you who return week after week to seek justice and raise awareness, you are the reason this channel exists. Every share, every comment, every like is a voice for the voiceless. If you believe these stories matter, please don't forget to subscribe and tap the notification bell so you won't miss what comes next. Because what happens in this case doesn't just haunt us, it reminds us why these stories must be told carefully, respectfully, and with purpose. When Molly didn't come home, her mother knew something was wrong. Magi went back to the pond. Molly's backpack was still there, her flip-flops and towel too. But Molly was gone. The lifeguard chair was empty. Panic set in. The police were called. At first, some thought maybe Molly had wandered off or gone swimming, but her family knew she'd never leave her post without telling someone, and she was a strong swimmer. Something wasn't right. Within hours, a massive search began. Warren had never seen anything like it. Police officers, firefighters, helicopters, search dogs, divers, everyone came together. Volunteers searched the woods. People brought food and water for search teams. Flyers with Molly's face were posted everywhere. The Bish family was heartbroken but hopeful. Magi believed her daughter was still alive. She refused to give up. For days, the search went on, then weeks, then months, but Molly was gone. A strange detail stood out. The day before Molly disappeared, Magi had noticed something unusual. When she dropped Molly off at the pond, she saw a man sitting alone in a white car, smoking a cigarette. He made her feel uneasy. She didn't know why. The next day, the day Molly vanished, that same car was there again, but this time, the man was gone. Magi mentioned it to police right away, but for some reason, the tip wasn't taken seriously at first. That delay would haunt her for years. The case went cold. Despite all the searches, there was no sign of Molly, no body, no answers, but her parents never stopped looking. They became advocates for missing children. They spoke at events, organized searches, and worked with police. Molly's story spread far beyond Massachusetts. Everyone had the same question. What happened to Molly Bish? 3 years later, the nightmare deepened. On June 9, 2003, a man was hiking through the woods in Palmer, about 5 miles from the pond, when he found something strange. A piece of a blue swimsuit. Nearby, police found bones. Dental records confirmed what everyone feared. It was Molly. Her remains were scattered across a wooded hillside. It looked like she had been there for a long time. The discovery broke her family's hearts all over again. But now they had a new mission: find the person who did this. The investigation was reopened. Now that police had a body, they hoped for new leads. They interviewed people again, looked through old files, examined evidence more closely. One name stood out: a man named Rodney Stanger. He had lived in the area at the time Molly disappeared. He drove a white car. He liked to fish at Commons Pond, and he had a violent past. Years later, he was convicted in Florida for murdering his girlfriend. The Bish family believed he could be the one, but there wasn't enough evidence. Rodney Stanger denied involvement. Police couldn't prove he had been at the pond that day. DNA found near Molly's remains didn't match him. There were other suspects too, men with criminal histories, some who had lived nearby, but again and again, there wasn't enough to make an arrest. Molly's case stayed open, but no one was ever charged. For the Bish family, the pain never went away. They had lost their daughter, their sister, and they still didn't know why, but they turned their grief into purpose. Molly's parents worked hard to help other families with missing children. They pushed for changes in how cases were handled. They kept Molly's story alive. Her face was shown on billboards. Her name was mentioned in news stories. People across the country knew about the girl who vanished from a quiet pond on a summer morning. Molly Bish was more than a case. She was a daughter, a friend, a teammate. Her smile lit up every room. She had dreams of becoming a teacher, maybe working with kids, but her life was stolen, and whoever did it still walks free. After Molly's body was found in 2003, the case shifted. It was no longer just a missing person. Now it was a murder, and still there were no answers. The wooded area where her remains were found had been searched before, but somehow it was missed. Some believed her body had been moved. Others thought it was just too deep in the woods. Either way, the truth remained hidden, and the killer was still out there. Police now had a crime scene, but very little to work with. 3 years had passed. Weather and time had destroyed most evidence. Her bones were scattered. The blue swimsuit was torn. Animals and rain had washed away clues. It was heartbreaking, but investigators didn't give up. They looked at every name, every tip, every strange man reported near the pond in the days before Molly vanished. One name kept coming up: Rodney Stanger. Rodney was a new kind of suspect. He had lived in Southbridge, not far from Warren. He fished at Commons Pond. He owned a white car, just like the one Molly's mom saw the morning before she vanished. And there was more. In 2007, Rodney moved to Florida. A year later, he murdered his girlfriend, Crystal Morrison. He stabbed her, then ran. Police caught him, and he was sentenced to prison. When Crystal's sister heard about Molly's case on TV, she contacted investigators. She said Rodney had once bragged about knowing how to hide a body. He had also talked about a girl in Massachusetts who had been found in the woods. Was it a confession, or just sick talk? Police took the lead seriously. Molly's family believed Rodney was the one. Magi and John Bish wanted answers. They believed the white car, the fishing trips, and Rodney's violent past all lined up. But there was a problem. There was no physical evidence, no DNA, no fingerprints, nothing directly tying Rodney to the murder of Molly Bish. Without it, the case couldn't go to trial, and the Bish family had to wait again. There were other suspects too. Another man caught investigators' attention: Gerald Battistoni. He had a long criminal record, including sexual assault. He had also lived near the pond. His name came up in connection with other cases of missing or murdered women in Massachusetts. DNA was taken, tips were followed. Still, no match, no solid link. Then in 2014, Gerald tried to take his own life in prison. Some believed it was out of guilt. Others thought it was unrelated. A few years later, he died, and another possible lead went cold. Molly's family never stopped pushing, even after years passed. Even after the news coverage faded, they fought for justice. They started the Molly Bish Foundation, helping families of missing children. They worked with police, supported search efforts, and told Molly's story to the world. In interviews, Maggie often said, if this could happen to Molly, it could happen to anyone. That message hit hard, because Molly was just a kid, a lifeguard, a helper. She should have been safe, but she was not. In 2021, more than 20 years after Molly vanished, a new hope appeared. Police announced they were testing DNA from new evidence found near the area where her body was discovered. They didn't say what the item was, only that it had been missed in earlier searches. The forensic lab was advanced. Technology had improved since 2000. There was hope that even the smallest trace could lead to someone. But again, nothing public came from it. No arrest, no press conference, no justice. For the Bish family, each year feels like another wound. They've lived through every parent's worst nightmare, and they still have no answers. Magi once said, "We've been in this for 2 decades. It never gets easier. It only gets harder." She visits the spot where Molly worked. The lifeguard chair was replaced, but the memory remains. Local kids still swim at the pond, and every summer, people leave flowers in Molly's honor. She's become a symbol of hope, of loss, and of the fight for justice. Over the years, people across the country have reached out. Some offer tips, others share stories of their own missing loved ones. All of them understand what the Bish family went through, the not knowing, the pain, the endless waiting. True crime shows, podcasts, and documentaries have covered Molly's story, but no matter how much attention it gets, the killer remains unidentified. Magi believes someone out there knows the truth, and she's right, someone does. In the end, the Molly Bish case is about more than one tragedy. It's about a young girl who wanted to protect others, but wasn't protected herself. It's about a family that refused to stay silent, and it's about the cracks in a system that lets suspects walk free while loved ones suffer in the dark. Molly's case is still open. Police say they're still reviewing tips, they're still testing evidence, and they still hope for a break. But the clock is ticking. Time steals memories, witnesses pass away, evidence fades, yet one thing remains: Molly Bish deserves justice. After Molly Bish disappeared, the town of Warren changed forever. It used to be a quiet, small-town place. People didn't lock their doors. Kids played outside. Parents felt safe letting their children walk to school or go to the pond alone. But after June 27, 2000, everything changed. Fear crept in. Parents kept their children close. Teens stopped going to the pond. That feeling of innocence, of safety was gone, and it never came back. The community rallied behind the Bish family. Hundreds of people volunteered to help search for Molly. Police, firefighters, neighbors, even strangers combed through the woods, fields, and back roads. They didn't know Molly, but they cared. They brought food to the Bish home. They made signs. They wore blue ribbons, Molly's favorite color, on their shirts, their cars, their mailboxes. The town was grieving, not just for Molly, but for the loss of security they once knew. Maggie Bish became a powerful voice for missing children. She didn't hide from the pain, she used it. She spoke at schools, churches, and police departments. She trained other parents on what to do when a child goes missing. She fought for better systems to track and respond to disappearances. And through the Molly Bish Foundation, she helped hundreds of families just like hers, facing the same horror. Magi said, if we can save just one child, then Molly's life wasn't in vain. But behind every speech was a mother still broken. John Bish once said they had to divide their lives into two pieces: before Molly and after Molly. Before Molly, their home was full of laughter. After Molly, it was full of silence. They kept her room the same. Her posters stayed on the walls, her notebooks on the desk, even her lifeguard uniform, carefully folded, never touched. Time passed, but the pain didn't fade. Even after her remains were found, the mystery only deepened. Why would someone target Molly? She wasn't involved in anything dangerous. She had no enemies. She was a lifeguard, trying to protect others, and she was only on the job for her 8th day. Investigators believed her abduction was planned, that the person had watched her, waited, learned her schedule. Maybe they had even spoken to her before. That's what scared people most. This wasn't random. This was calculated. The man in the white car, he became the ghost in everyone's mind. Magi saw him that morning. She was sure of it. He didn't look like a fisherman. He didn't wave. He didn't smile. He just stared. By the time police arrived, he was gone. Later, multiple people came forward, saying they had also seen a man watching Molly in the days before she vanished. He never spoke, he just watched. And then, after June 27, he was never seen again. That man has never been identified. New technology brought new hope, but still no justice. In 2021, police tested DNA on a piece of evidence found near the discovery site. Some believed it was a hair, others thought it might be a cigarette butt or a piece of clothing. They hoped it would match someone in the national database, but the results were never made public. Was it inconclusive? Was it a match that couldn't be used in court? No one knows. The public and the family were left in silence again. Molly's story has been told across America. It was featured on shows like America's Most Wanted, Unsolved Mysteries, and 2020. Newspapers wrote front-page stories. True crime podcasts retold her timeline. People everywhere prayed for answers. In some ways, Molly became every parent's daughter. Her face, smiling in her lifeguard uniform, became a symbol of stolen youth. Her story was tragic, but it connected people. People who never met her still light candles on June 27. They still post her picture every year. They still remember her name. And through it all, the Bish family keeps hoping, not just for closure, but for justice. They want to know who did this, why, how, and they want to make sure that no other family suffers in silence the way they did. In one interview, Magi said, "I will never stop fighting. I will never stop telling Molly's story, because the person who took her, they should never sleep easy." But what if the killer is already gone? That's a question the Bish family doesn't want to believe, but they know it's possible. But maybe, just maybe, someone else knows something. Someone heard a confession, saw something suspicious, remembered something years later. Sometimes, that's all it takes. A memory, a tip, a single piece of truth. Because Molly Bish still matters. She was only 16. Her life was just beginning, and in a few moments, everything was taken from her. No child should go to work and never come home. No family should wait 20+ years for answers, and no killer should be allowed to walk free. It's been more than 2 decades, 25 years since Molly Bish stood by the edge of the pond, adjusting her lifeguard chair. 25 years since Magi dropped her off, never knowing it would be the last time. Time moves forward, but for the Bish family, part of them is still stuck on that summer day in 2000, still hoping, still asking why, still waiting for justice. The police say the case is still open. Detectives have files stacked floor to ceiling. They've followed more than 1,000 leads. DNA has been tested, suspects questioned, witnesses re-interviewed, but no one has been arrested, no one has confessed, and no one has been held responsible for taking Molly's life. Her killer could be dead, or they could still be alive, hiding in plain sight. There were suspects, but never proof. Rodney Stanger lived in Southbridge at the time, just 20 minutes from Commons Pond. He looked like the composite sketch based on that white car sighting. Years later, he was convicted of murdering his girlfriend in Florida. Her sister claimed he once bragged about killing a girl in Massachusetts, but no physical evidence ever linked him to Molly's case. Then there was Gerald Battistoni, another man who matched the sketch and had a long history of violence. He was a confidential informant for the police and had served time for raping a teenage girl. When his name came up in Molly's case, he tried to kill himself in jail. He died in 2014, but again, no charges were ever filed. No confession was made. The Bish family never gave up. John Bish, Molly's father, passed away in 2021 after a long battle with cancer. He never got the answers he desperately wanted, but until his final days, he stayed hopeful that the truth would come out. Magi Bish, Molly's mother, continued to speak for her daughter. She kept fighting, traveling across the country to talk about missing children, child safety, and law enforcement reforms. And Heather, Molly's older sister, took on the mission too. Together, they turned their grief into action. They pushed for new laws. Thanks to the Bish family, Massachusetts created better systems to track missing persons. Maggie helped launch the Molly Bish Center for the Protection of Children and the Elderly at Anna Maria College. She didn't want other families to face the same darkness. She believed that Molly's story could save lives, and in many ways it has. But no matter how much good came from the pain, it was still pain. Molly's friends got married, they had kids, they built lives. Molly never got that chance. She never went to prom, never graduated high school, never got to chase her dreams of being a teacher. All of it was stolen from her. And the worst part, whoever did it still hasn't been brought to justice. There's one last piece that still haunts everyone. The camera that should have been at the pond that day wasn't working. A security camera had been installed to keep people safe, but it failed at the worst possible moment. If it had worked, we might have seen Molly's abduction. The license plate of the white car, the face of the man who took her, but it didn't work. One small failure that changed everything. So what happened to Molly Bish? The truth is, we don't know. We know someone took her. We know she was murdered. We know her body was left in the woods, but we don't know who. We don't know why, and we may never know. That's the hardest part. Because stories like this aren't just about solving crimes. They're about remembering the people behind them. Molly wasn't just a missing person. She was a daughter, a sister, a friend, a young girl who smiled easily, loved helping others, and just wanted to make a difference. She still can. Molly's case reminds us how fragile life is, how evil can hide behind a smile, how important it is to protect one another, and how justice, even when it's delayed, is still worth chasing. Every day, every year, no matter how long it takes. If you know anything, even the smallest detail, call the Massachusetts State Police. It's never too late to speak up, because someone out there knows something, and one voice could finally bring Molly Bish home. Not just in memory, but in justice. She deserves that. They all do. Thank you for watching. If this story moved you, please like, share, or leave a comment. Every voice helps keep these victims remembered. And if you want to see more stories like this, real stories that matter, please subscribe. Until next time, stay safe and take care of each other.